Greetings, greetings, greetings. This is Spiritual Speaking 7 coming to you with part 2 of Natureboys' real natal chart, an astrological letter to Nature Boy. So I want to say that I know Nature Boy got the first video because already he's copied some of the things that I've said about him, and he's recently been talking more about astrology, bringing his chart out, looking at his aspects. And I know he got the video because I sent it to one of his people and she responded to me. So, well, I sent it to a lot of his people, but one of his people responded to me. And so I know she let him know about the video. And soon after that, my video is called An Astrological Letter to Nature Boy, Nature Boy's Real Natal Chart. Soon after that, he goes and does a live, and the live is called A Letter to Nana. And then he did another live where he says astrology is real. And I said that in my other video. And he's been taking his chart out and he's been discussing some of the aspects that I mentioned in part 1. So now he figures since I don't have a huge YouTube following and his platform is bigger than mine, he can go on ahead and try to beat me to the punch and make it look like he was already looking at his challenging aspects, but he wasn't. He always just mentions his positive ones. And I mentioned some of his positive ones too, but I wanted to balance it out with the challenging ones. But I also want to let you all know that astrology just basically shows you the energy that you have, the energy that you were born with, but you get to direct the energy. You are I don't know what is that? The person that holds the baton and waves it to the people and they play the music. I guess it's what's he called? I can't even think of his name right now. But anyway, you are the one who runs the energy. Okay? And what happens is we don't know who we are. We don't have no clue about, why we tick the way that we tick. When we don't have a clue, we just let the energy run us. And that's what Nature Boy's been doing. He's been letting the lower aspects of his chart, or the challenging aspects of his chart, run him. He's accepted that, when he reads his chart, he reads it as if he has no control over himself, that the chart is just written in stone, when that's not true. Your astrological chart is just here to show you what energies you got running through you. And those energies can be easy or they can be challenging. But you can make the challenging energies work for you and not against you. But you have to be willing to run that energy and not let the energy run you. But what happens is if you're more comfortable in your lower self, you let those challenging energies run you. And I mentioned one of his challenging energies being Jupiter square the moon in the last video. Well, which one I did not mention his sun. Oh, I did mention his sun opposed Jupiter. But I didn't mention why both of those two aspects together, moon square Jupiter and Jupiter opposed the sun, why that is important for Nature Boy to understand, because those two aspects talk about fulfillment, feeling fulfilled. And when you don't feel fulfilled, you feel empty. And that's why I said that he was empty on the inside. Because Jupiter is a planet of abundance and it's the planet of expansion. And it's a lucky planet also. But he has challenging aspects going to it. So that means that this particular Jupiter, no matter what Jupiter activities it does, such as traveling, religion, philosophy, anything that has to do with the higher mind, learning, higher achievements, higher educational achievements, having to do with religion and education and philosophy, no matter how much of that he does, he's not going to be happy. He's not going to be satisfied. And I feel that's the reason why he did the video the other day saying that we're not here to be happy. We're here to grow. And that's his subconscious talking, you see. his Jupiter is in the 12th house of the subconscious mind. Okay, so a lot of things that he's saying, he don't even realize what he's really saying. He's basically channeling information from the subconscious mind, and we can see that in his chart because he has Jupiter in the 12th house, of the subconscious mind. So a lot of these things that he says that don't make no sense. See, it doesn't make any sense because he doesn't even realize what he's telling us, having that Jupiter in the 12th house. Whenever you're dealing with the 12th, or you're dealing with Neptune, or you're dealing with Pisces energy, period, you don't know until you know. It can be a very confusing energy when you don't have knowledge of self. But when you have knowledge of self, you can see the illusion. You can see right past the illusion and say to yourself, "Oh no, I'm not going to that. That's not real. I'm not falling for that." But Nature Boy, he doesn't really know himself. He says a lot of brilliant things like, who you are is forever changing. That's true. That's very true. If you're really, really growing, you're going to evolve. You're going to be different from who you were 5 years ago. If you're growing, that's very true. But as we can see, Nature Boy is very stuck. And the reason why we know that he's very stuck is because he's very predictable. He's very predictable. And he's predictable in the lower aspects. How he treats women, a lot of people want to focus on just how he treats women, but I don't think it's good how he treats the men up there either. People want to make fun of these men and say these men are, acting like bitches, and they shouldn't be letting Nature Boy emasculate them the way that he does. But you got to understand, the people that he have up there, they're up under an illusion. And they don't know who they are. So when Nature Boy says they're his reflections, he's telling the truth. They represent aspects of his insecurities. And see, truly deep down, he's very afraid and very scared. And that is represented by his Uranus opposed to Mercury that is conjunct Chiron. I spoke about how he felt voiceless as a child and how he felt that he couldn't protect himself. And his brother shows up after I did that video and says that Nature Boy is not a fighter. He's not a fighting type. And that he was picked on as a child and jumped on, and he was kind of a scaredy cat. And Nature Boy does have Mars and Libra. Libra is a lover, not a fighter. But out of balance, they will fight. They on some alcohol. So I can see why he put his hands on his women when he get drunk. But I think what's happening to him when he has the alcohol, or even when he doesn't have the alcohol and he's doing this negative behavior towards women and doing this negative behavior towards emasculated men, he cannot do that to a man, because a man is the one who gave him the trauma, is the one that traumatized him as a child. And that's who he fears. And he feels that part of him that fears the man that's the part he doesn't want us to see. That's why he's always talking about he's an alpha male and he used to fight dudes and this, that, the other. Nature Boy, come on now. I can see it in your chart. You're a sweetheart. You're actually very sweet and very loving. Okay, I can see it in your numerology of your birthday. And I can see it in your Venus and Pisces, and even in your Mars and Libra. Even your Taurus party. Those are all lovers. Those are lovers. Now, Tauruses can't be abusive. They can't be abusive when they don't know who they are. I talked about that in one of my other videos. It's a really long-ass video, so you got to watch it till they get to Taurus. But basically what I said is that the Taurus, sometimes they have to lose themselves in becoming abusive to realize that that's not what they want to be. And then that's when they find out what they're capable of. Like if they get into a relationship where they put their hands on a woman and, they come to find out that they're capable of doing that. But for Nature Boy, when he puts his hand on a woman, he's really putting his hands on the masculine part of the woman. He's not putting his hands on the feminine part of the woman. If the woman has strength in her, it reminds him of the men who abused him in his younger years. It re-traumatizes him. But a part of him knows that even though she's bucking up on him, like she's, reminding him of a guy, or he's seeing her masculine energy, he knows she's still a female. But when he puts his hands on her, he knows he's going to win because she's a female. But he's putting his hands on her so that he can make her go back into submission. Make her go out of her masculine, back into her feminine part. So now, how we see him playing it out is constantly having the sex, which is his Scorpio rising, constantly having sex with different women. And that goes back to his Jupiter square moon opposed to sun. Now, moon represents women, okay, and Jupiter represents abundance. So he has his Jupiter in adverse aspect. It's squaring the moon, which represents women. Now, what's even more interesting about his Jupiter square the moon is the moon is in the house that Jupiter rules. So imagine this. Imagine that somebody ends up in your house and you're over in another house. And in this particular house that you're in, you're not that noticeable because the house is in the bushes somewhere. It's behind the trees in the forest, right? Because the 12th house is ruled by Neptune, and Neptune represents not being able to see the forest for the trees. It represents the rose-colored glasses. So you in one of them houses that people can't really see. Now, the house that you really rule is one where you're very noticeable at, but somebody else is in that house. So you got a problem with that. You got a problem with that. And so the energy that you got towards them is that they're in your house, they're outshining you. That's supposed to be where you're at. This is the energy that Nature Boy has going towards women when it comes to expressing themselves in those areas that are ruled by the 9th house. Religion, philosophy, travel, education, higher education. All those aspects that have to do with the 9th house. He doesn't want a woman to be more intellectual than him. And he doesn't want anybody to be more intellectual with him. And if you pay attention to him when he's talking to a man who can stand his ground, he always runs his test on those men that can stand their ground. He'll try to overtalk them, try to punk them, some kind of way, try to intimidate them, try to see if he can find that feminine in there somewhere. And then once he sees that, he honed in for the killing. But if he can't see that in the man, like I saw the other day, he was talking to some guy called Smart, and I think he was on Smart's live. If Smart wasn't on his live, he was on Smart's. So had it been the other way around, Nature Boy would have been disconnected from him. He would have been hung dude up and ran his mouth and tried to immediately manipulate the audience to be on his side. But it wasn't his live, so he couldn't do that. But so when he's seeing that, and I think that, since Velvet left him, it's really affecting him. And I know why it's affecting him, because she does have moon in Cancer, and her sun sign is Aquarius. And so she really nurtured him. She really, really nurtured him. And he missed that mommy feeling. He missed that mommy energy that she was giving to him. Even though he wants to try to say he's her father, really, she was more like a mommy to him. But when she had her baby, anybody got time to baby, grown ass man and baby, an actual baby. Anybody got time for that? So his time just ran out with Velvet. It ran out. But Nature Boy has a problem with women being more smarter than him and being more intellectual than him. And he has a problem with even men who don't run around saying they're the alpha male. Men who don't care about being alpha. They just men. Those kind of men who are comfortable with themselves and who don't mean him no harm. Those are the ones that he emasculates. Those are the ones that he tears down for no reason but to keep himself on the top. And that's just his lower self continuously playing out. And his lower self, he doesn't even understand or even know this. Nature Boy, you need to take a look at that Jupiter in your 12th house, bro. It has challenging aspects going to it. Jupiter in the 12th house is good, but when you have challenging aspects going to it, you can't see those challenging energies taking over you. The 12th house is that part of us that we can't see for the forest. We can't see it. We can't see the forest for the trees. Because it's about it, it's illusion is in that house. For many years, I thought that my 6th house was ruled by Sagittarius. I got Neptune in my 6th house. For many years, I thought it was ruled by Sagittarius. It took me 6 years to realize that my 6th house was actually ruled by Scorpio. And the reason why I couldn't see the forest for the trees is because Neptune was sitting up in there. And I'm looking at the chart with my eyes. I'm looking at it. Had the chart in my possession at the time for over 6 years. So, this is the type of people that you bring up there in your group. You bring 12th house people in. People who are looking to be rescued and saved. And the 12th house has institutions in there. I want to go deeper into that. It has institutions in there. Now, I want to read from this book here. I love this book. I've had this book for years. I got about 3 copies of it. The only astrology book you'll ever know. Or you'll ever need. Excuse me. Let me read to you what the 12th house means. I already talked about it, having institutions in there. I talked about, illusion being up in there. It's a lot of other things up in there. So let me just read to you what's in there. Okay, the 12th house. This is the house of secrets, sorrows, and self-undoing. It is the most mystical of all the houses, the final house, the end of the circle. This is not necessarily a negative and gloomy place, but it does define the limitations placed on your life, including by yourself through self-undoing behavior. This house governs disappointments, accidents, trouble, and self-defeat. You hear that? Self-defeat. It rules unseen forces. You hear that? Secret enemies, escapism, asylums, hospitals, and prisons. The 12th house has been called the house of karma, the house of spiritual depth, for it contains the rewards and punishments for the deeds one commits in the world. It is associated with psychic powers and the ability to discover at last the meaning of life. So let's go back to what I find interesting. Let's go back to, it says, the part where it says about self. It says here, this is not necessarily a negative and gloomy place, but it does define the limitations placed on your life, including by yourself through self-undoing behavior. Self-undoing. So what do you think that means, Nature Boy? Self-undoing. Then it goes on to say that it rules unseen forces, secret enemies, escapism, asylums, hospitals, and prisons. And what I want to say about that is, with the 12th house ruling institutions, basically. Institutions. Carbonation is an institution, and it's your institution, Nature Boy. It's yours. And you have Jupiter in the subconscious mind, the 12th house of your chart, where institutions are at. So when you tell people that they have to be of your mind, you're talking about your subconscious mind. You're basically saying that they have to participate in your 12th house, your subconscious mind, and they have to be characters. Because there's certain roles that you want to play out. There's certain roles that you need to play out to convince yourself that you are all these powerful things that you say you are, when you really haven't done the work to be that. You just want to take it. You want to just take it, like be a thief of it, and you haven't done the work for it. But you don't see that you're doing that, because your Jupiter is square your moon and oppose your sun. You're not supposed to see it, because if you saw it, then you wouldn't be able to do the things that you do. Participating in a lower self. having all these women, sleeping with different women, mistreating women, mistreating the male friends you have up there. And then you really act like you don't know that you're doing these things. I'm wondering, it's quite possible, you guys, that he don't know that he's doing this because his Jupiter is square the moon. Feelings and emotions. And his Jupiter is in the 12th house. So in order for, when Jupiter is in challenging aspect to the moon and the moon is in Jupiter's house, in order for the Jupiter to have its way, it's got to harness the energy of the 12th house, which is illusion. So in order for him to disrespect the women, he can't really realize that he's doing that because the lower self wouldn't be able to come online. So Nature Boy, you need to, if I saw the video of you the other day with Mr. the Smart Guy. It seemed possible that you could, still be calling out for help. You've always been calling out for help. Those things that you said to him last night about why can't he help you? Why don't he, people don't understand you're a product of your environment. You said all that before. But see, Nature Boy, you can't want people to be kind to you and loving towards you when the people that you got around you that you've manipulated to love you more than they love their own selves, you don't even treat them right. You disrespect the shit out of them. So you get what you put out. If you want people to show some love to you, show some love to the people that live with you. Stop taking those weak-minded people for granted like that. And you can't be teaching them no astrology because you don't really know astrology all like that. You knew in astrology. You said you've been studying it since 2006. You ain't really been studying much then. I've been doing it for 23 years. Numerology as well. And I can tell a person who's a rookie. I can tell, and you are. The other day when you wanted to read about your moon trying your Uranus, you couldn't even remember the aspect. You was like, what's that aspect? That's my favorite aspect. And one of your people in the background called it out, moon trine Uranus. But you can't even remember the aspect, but it's your favorite aspect and it's your own damn chart. You ask me about the aspects in my chart, I can tell them to you. My favorite ones particularly, like the little minor ones, I probably won't even be able to go into those, like the inconjuncts, because I don't deal with the inconjuncts. They are important, but I pay more attention to the bigger aspects. But I can tell you my favorite aspects of my chart. I can tell you them. And I don't have to go, I don't even have anyone that I can, ask who is my, ask that to. What is my favorite? What's the name of my favorite aspect? But you do. You're lazy. You got people cooking for you. You probably got people making your bed for you, cleaning your room for you. You don't do anything, dude. You're lazy. But you want to have everything given to you or handed over to you without you doing the work. And you want people to people that's have a problem with you to not have a problem with you, but you don't want to do the work so that they don't have a problem with you. And the problem that people have with you is that you talk all this peaceful stuff, you talk all this love stuff, you talk all this how we got to stick together, but you're not really sticking together with the people up there. They stick with you, but you don't stick with them. You disrespect them and degrade them for everybody to see. You tell all their business. And one more thing I want to mention about Nature Boy is his Scorpio rising. And after that, I'm going to close this video out because I think I said enough. I'm going to mention something about his 11th house too, and then I'm going to be done. When people leave you, Nature Boy, the little sick, twisted thing that you do, I'm very familiar with this energy because I was raised by somebody who got a Scorpio rising. One of my parents got, I ain't going to say which one, but one of my parents got a Scorpio rising. And that particular parent used to do this, and I see you doing this to the people in your group when they leave. When they leave, you be like desperate. You get in your debt. You be desperate, and you be mad, and you start feeling like you're being abandoned, and you start doing these little wicked things like trying to plant these negative psychological seeds on them. Start telling them about what's going to happen to them and what's going to happen to them when they leave and how they're going to come crawling back to you because Babylon going to do this and that to them, and you start planting these seeds on them. And your hope is that when they get to a dark place, because they ain't going to be able to help but to get to a dark place after fucking with you for so long, they ain't going to help but to have to come to that, because when they start reflecting on their life and how they was there with you and how you were in your mental asylum, carbonation, 12th house, when they start reflecting on that shit, they're going to go to a dark place. And people just go into dark places, period. If you ever live life and you had challenges in life, you will get to a place where you go through a dark period. And Nature Boy is aware of this because he done been through many of them. And he's still in one. He's hoping that when you get to that dark place, that you will let those negative psychological seeds root and start growing. That's his Scorpio rising doing that to you. That's his Scorpio energy. Okay, I have to take a look at his Pluto aspects. I'm pretty sure it got something to do with something with his Pluto too. I need to look at that. But he does have Pluto up there in 11th house, actually, conjunct Saturn. But I need to see what else is going on with his Pluto. That's a Scorpio thing. They're very psychological. And Scorpios are like keen observers. They always want to they don't deal with what they see on the surface. They like to see what's below the surface. And whenever they're dealing with somebody that they can't figure out, or they're around someone they can't figure out, they get turned off easily because they must be in control of their environment. They must know everyone's weaknesses and everyone's strengths. And they're very good at using your strengths against you or your weaknesses against you. They can use them both against you. I had a friend who had a Scorpio moon who me and her got into it, and she told me, "You talk too damn much. Your mouth too goddamn big." And it hurt my feelings when she said that because my mom used to tell me that. When I was growing up, I have a Gemini rising. And I also was born I'm not going to say when I was born, but my birthday plus my month come out to a 3. That's the communicator. So she hurt my feelings when she said that shit. But when I reflected back on the fact that she said that shit, I remember, that she's always calling me. She calls me when she needs to handle business over the phone because she's not a good talker. She don't know how to talk to people. And when she couldn't get her point across to people, like when she had to pay bills and shit like that, she would call me to do the job for her. And then when we would go out, she would always stand in the corner and I'd be talking to people and everything. And she would try to do it, but it just never, it never worked for her. She wasn't a natural talker. She was not a natural social person. She was not a natural communicator. So she tried to take my strength and use it against me, make me feel bad about something that I felt comfortable with. And this is what Scorpios do. Now, on the positive side, they can take what they know about you, your strengths or your weaknesses. They can take your strengths and make them stronger, or they can take your weaknesses and they can heal you. They can heal you because Scorpios are healers. So if you're not a healer, if that same healer don't know what they're doing and they in their lower self, that's like going to a doctor who about to do surgery on you and they chop off the wrong part of some shit. Okay, because Scorpio rules the 8th house and surgery's up there. Okay, so on that note, I'm gonna mention his 11th house, and then I'm out of here. Okay, so Nature Boy, your 11th house of friendship. Friendships, hopes, and wishes. You have Pluto conjunct Saturn up there, and you have Mars up there. Now, Mars is not conjunct your Saturn and your Pluto, but Saturn and Pluto are. And Saturn is a planet of karma. And it's in your 11th house of friendships. So karma planet up there. You think about what that means for you. Your planet of karma is conjunct Pluto. And Pluto is, rules Scorpio. And it is the planet of sex, death, transformation. The transformation can be going from one form to another. And sometimes that form can be going from life to death. And you got that up there in your friendship house. Conjunct the karma planet. Now, in my opinion, I know for a fact that everybody that's up there on that camp with you, they not all as dumb and stupid as they pretend to be. Okay? And they're not as asleep as a lot of people think they are. A lot of them then came online. Some of the people then came online, but they just plotting and planning and going over things in their head about how they're going to make their moves. Trust and believe. And since Velvet has left, a lot of them are doing that. So Nature Boy, If you got any thoughts in your head about transforming on your own before you're forced to transform some kind of way because of your karma, you should take heed to that. Because the smart guy was telling the truth when he said you have a lot of potential. I can see it in your chart. I said that in part 1 video before the smart guy even came online and said what he said. I can see the potential in your chart. You have the potential to do a lot of great things, but you need to shut up for some time. You need to be quiet. And he was telling the truth when he said you need to meditate. You do. You need to meditate and you need to study more. I think you would be a good healer, an excellent healer, especially in the sex area. There's sex healers out there. That's one of your favorite subjects, sex. And I think you'd be good at taking people's weaknesses and helping them turn them into strengths. Because you damn sure know how to take their weaknesses and use them against them. So if you reverse that energy, you could do some great work for people. But you need to be aware of the energy so you can know how to make those energies work for you. I'm not mad at you. I truly feel for you and all that you've been through. And I don't throw you out. I don't throw you out. I don't care about, what you did in the past. I don't care about, the homosexual stuff. I see a lot of people want to harbor on that. But, as black people, I think I understand why you champion for gay people. Because obviously you've been around those people and you live that lifestyle, and those people are just as human as anybody else. And it's not really nobody's job to say who should be here in this area or who should not be here in this area. It's not nobody's job to say who should be representing and who should not be representing. But if you gonna represent, do this shit right. Don't be contradicting yourself. Don't be trying to straddle the fence and be on both sides of the fence. I can see why you do that because you got Mars and Libra. So you have an impulsive nature to take this side if it's convenient, and then if that side ain't convenient no more, bounce over to the other side. But see, people see you as being a hypocrite and doing that. So you need to learn how to control that energy. You don't want people to be able to predict you like that. I got Mars square Venus in my chart, and it denotes a combative person. And I was combative for many years. And when people told me I was combative, I didn't believe them. I didn't want to accept it. And when I got into astrology and I started looking at my aspects, I saw that aspect. And when I read what it was about, I started to reflect, and I came outside of myself. And I looked at myself objectively, and I was like, well, goddamn, they were right. I have been combative. I have, argued with people over petty shit. I have, brought drama to a peaceful environment when it was totally unnecessary. Because squares represent triggers. They represent triggers. And I didn't realize that a lot of small shit was triggering me. I didn't realize it. And when people said I was being combative, I was like, what does that mean? How could you tell me that? I'm just defending myself. I'm just saying what's right. But what I came to see is that once I made the choice that I didn't want people to be able to predict me like that and know something about me that I wasn't aware of within myself. Once I came to see that I didn't like that, that's when I got to the point where I said, okay, I must do something about this particular energy. I'm not going to just be walking around being combative for the rest of my life. I'm not going to just be doing that and having people be able to say, oh, she's combative. She likes to argue all the time. She's real petty. She brings drama to a peaceful environment. I didn't want that type of title on me. And this is why the 7th house is important, because it's a mirror. It mirrors back to you how you look and how people see you. The opposite house of the first house. And so how people were seeing me, they were seeing my Mars square Venus. That was one of the aspects they were seeing, which is I was combative. This is, when I was in my 20s. But when I got into astrology and I saw this aspect in my chart, I said, okay, I am not going to let this energy run me anymore because I wasn't aware of it. Now that I'm aware of it, I'm going to run the energy. And then I said to myself, well, wait a minute. It's a natural energy. I was born with it. there's got to be a way I can use it in a more positive way, in a way that will benefit me rather than go against me. And so I said, okay, being combative can't, be completely wrong. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And so I said, okay, what I'm gonna have to do is I'm going to have to only have a discussion with people, because it can't be, if you discuss having a discussion, then it's not an argument and it's not being combative. And so if somebody says something that I don't like a trigger, that's something that used to trigger me in the past, the more that I mastered only having an argument when it's necessary, the less it became for people to trigger me. And so now, like when people say things that I don't like, instead of arguing and screaming and yelling and ridiculing, I just I say what I have to say about my reasons for disagreeing, and I say it calmly. I don't yell, I don't scream, I don't ridicule. And so I'm getting what I need to say out. I'm not biting my tongue to help to keep the peace. I'm still saying what I need to say. And if they say something back to me and it turns into a discussion rather than an argument, I still maintain my composure and still say what I need to say in a non-threatening way, in a controlled way. So my Mars square Venus, it strengthened me. And it got me to a place where I no longer argue for petty reasons. I enjoy where my Mars and Venus has gotten me, especially when it comes to conversations and being able to express myself and just being mature, period. So you do have control over your energies, but you need to know that you have control over them, and you need to know that you run them. I mean, after all, it's your body, it's your mind, it's your higher self. You're the God over this energy, so use your powers wisely. Use them to the fullest. And on that note, I'm going to close out. I've said enough. Peace.